Hello, my name is Esther Anthony Thomas. I'm a student at San Diego State, and I'm actually studying to be a multicultural counselor, trauma-informed counselor through the CBB program. And I'd like to just share with you some of the prompts. Some of the prompts are to identify a stage in your life, a developmental process or stage where there was some conflict or some difficulty or some trauma, and how that impacted your history or your development as a person. And I've chosen to look at some childhood issues. One of the largest childhood issues was that I was a little black girl in the United States of America. There are some other traumas on top of that. Not that it's traumatic to be a black girl, but it's traumatic to live in a country who doesn't always value you and the melanin in your skin. I was in Montana. I was 8 years old. We were on a remote area in a military base, and I was sexually molested by my neighbor's father. It was pretty disgusting to even think about, to even mention, and so I didn't. So all these years later, I realized that during that developmental stage, which is called inferiority versus industry, is when I first learned that perhaps because I was victimized and sexually assaulted as a child, that maybe my value or my worth really wasn't that great. Maybe I would be victimized in any endeavors that I would try to do. Something about me, perhaps, made me feel less than. We were the only black family in that area during that time. In the early 60s, mid 60s, it was pretty tough, especially in remote Montana. And that's exactly what happened. We had a lot of trauma, racial trauma, but definitely the sexual abuse really impacted my value as a person as I was growing. And so fast forward all these years later, there are some goals that I wanted to achieve during the rest of my formative development that I just didn't get a chance to achieve. Part of it was because how I felt about myself. If I thought I would be successful, I was a very industrious high school student. I realized that some of the things that I wanted to accomplish I hadn't done. And so I find myself for the last 7 years, 7 years, pursuing my education when most people are retiring my age. But I really felt like after learning about some of the things that impacted my development, my worth, my value, the way I saw myself, I was able to find out where these glitches and traumas, how they impacted me. And I'd like to read, just to share a few concepts about the stages that I was speaking about. One of them is, again, the inferiority versus industry stage. And Erik Erikson, calls this the fourth psychological crisis involving industry. Competence versus inferiority occurs during childhood between the ages of 5 and 12. And there I was, 8-year-old, suffering that horrendous trauma, sexual trauma from my neighbor's father. Children at that stage, where they would be learning to read and write and to do sums and things on their own, teachers have an important role in the child's life as they teach the child specific skills. And I was good at school, but there's something called lessons of life. And the lessons of life taught me just as I was entering puberty and beginning to show signs of being a little young woman, a little breast development, and I was sexually assaulted. And that showed me that I didn't have the competence just to kind of even transition in my own body to being a woman without crisis. And I really took that, the inner child and the inner voice really took that hard. I never shared that, and I held that. And I'm learning that secrets are really hard to hold, and they really do a lot of emotional damage. The generativity versus stagnation stage. And this particular stage, this is stage 7 in Erikson's 8 stages of development, psychosocial development. And it happens ages 40 through 65 years old. And generativity refers to making your mark on the world through creating or nurturing things that will outlast an individual. That's when people pick up mentees. That's when they go into a lot of volunteer work. Their children are out of the house, not so much in California, but the children are out of their house, and they now have, okay, it's empty nest. I can do whatever I want to do. I think I'll retire or I'll go and work with a charity. We give back to society through raising our children, being productive at work, and becoming involved in community activities and organizations. Through generativity, we develop a sense of being a part of the bigger picture. I always want to say, like, the next generation. You've got your imprint on. But I realized that I hadn't imprinted my own self, that I had let someone rob that when they robbed my innocence through the idea is to identify the conflict for yourself, but then also ask people that have gone through this stage with you. And I've got some amazing friends, some dear friends, some sister friends, and I also have amazing children. I asked my good friend and my youngest daughter to share with me some ideas about how me being in this generativity stage and being proactive and going out and achieving the goals, even though it looks like I may be out of my age group for those that are attending college, especially in the program that I'm in. But again, there's something amazing about seeing where the developmental stage had some bumps and lumps and how it impacted the rest of your life. I just started caring for others because I really didn't feel that I was worthy enough to get my own care for my own dreams and aspirations. So I'm in school to be now a psychotherapist and a counselor, a licensed professional clinical counselor. And it's a lot of work, and some of the work has impacted people that I really care about. So I'll read the first letter from my youngest daughter. She said, since you've been in school, I've noticed that you have a pretty good balance of being a mother and being a student. There have been moments when you have prioritized schoolwork over quality time and vice versa. I personally think this is great, and seeing you follow your own personal goals is very inspirational. I have noticed your stress level and the impact it has on your life. And I guess that's what comes with school. On top of being a mom, a pastor, working 40 hours in other relationships. I think had I been younger and needed more of your time, it would impact me a little bit. But since I've been grown, I've had no problems with you prioritizing your schoolwork. So that's my youngest daughter, and she just had a child. And I can see sometimes she's needing some assistance, and I'm not able to be there. So there's some conflicts again in going back through these stages that, I also have another interview that I did with a very dear friend. I'll read what she says. It says, we are both at a stage in our lives where we can do what we want without the responsibility of kids and other distractions. We should be having fun, but you've chosen to pursue your master's degree. It's been difficult for me since you started CBB. You were taking classes before, but it's more intense now. We have become close over the last couple of years, and I've relied on you to support me with the changes in my life. In many ways, we are on a parallel journey, often sharing the same path. Your friendship and support have been an important part of my journey. Sometimes I think I rely on you too much. You are correct when you said that there have been times I needed to talk to you and you were not available. This does bring up feelings from the past. It makes me feel that maybe our friendship isn't real or it's not important to you. I've struggled with my own self-worth my entire life, and this brings up all the old feelings and negative internal dialogues. I know on an intellectual level that it's not true, but the feelings are very powerful. There are so many times I want to share something with you and you're not here. Your support is what encouraged me to seek counseling for myself. I have seen you pulled in multiple directions with family and friends. I see one of your dearest friends and how she has reached out to you, but the demands on your time has been too much and you have not been able to be there for her. I'm sure this is difficult for you because I know how much you love and care about your friends and your family in your life. I know you love your grandson, would love to be more involved as a grandmother. I see your husband's reactions to your decisions to pursue your education and your growth. I've seen you going through your father's health concerns, death of beloved friends, birth of a grandchild, illnesses, moving, and not having the time to fully process what has happened. So there are two different perspectives, some similar in some areas, of what it looks like to go through this stage. I would like to share with you this stage also, stage 7 of Erik Erikson's psychosocial development theory also says that if you don't go back, or when people get to a certain age like myself and they look back over their life and they go, there's something in this stage where you just sit back and take inventory of how your life has turned out and decide for yourself, is this what I want my life to be about? Can I impact the future in a good way? Can I impart? Will I feel good about that? But I had to go back and identify that there was some inferiority which caused me not to pursue some of my goals and aspirations. And that's the part that I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to share with you all that there are ways to go back. I have the benefit of being in an amazing program that almost cricks your head back and says, you will look at yourself and see where you were left lacking. Like myself, if I wasn't in this program, that probably would have a difficulty finding this type of care and community. And I wanted to share with you, there's an intervention that I was looking at that's part of the task of this multidimensional development paper, is to find out what would you do to help that 8-year-old child? What would you do to help the adult, the 40 to 65-year-old, process this generativity versus stagnation? Because I'm kind of into developmental stages right now. I'm still going back to do some repair work and addressing my worth. And some of that comes up by actually talking about or writing about what's happened in a very intensive, expressive process that will help ease emotional pain, because I'm sure you've heard that stress kills. Well, keeping secrets from people that are close to you is extremely stressful. It's hard to connect with someone you're trying to not communicate about what's really at the core of your issue. And I've come across some amazing doctors that have written this book, Opening Up by Writing It Down. And it's how expressive writing improves health and eases emotional pain. And there's a process. It's not just journaling. There's a process on how you would come to a seminar, a workshop, a series of workshops, and you would get in a room that has perhaps a waterfall, something that could kind of just be very soothing. I would always love to do some affirmations and some guided meditation first, and then you just write for 15 to 20, 30 minutes about the incident, about the issues. Hopefully just one incident so you can fully process it. And then at that point, you would go, maybe have a nice lunch, maybe do something else to kind of, ground yourself again in the rest of your day. But you would come back the next day and you would write again about that issue, that trauma, that concern, that misstep in whatever developmental age. You would assign responsibility. I've assigned responsibility in some of the work that I've done around my issues. And you would have support in that if you wanted support, but you would definitely have a place to just kind of get it out on paper. Some things that are hard, the unspeakable sometimes has truly become that. For me, the unspeakable literally was. I'm not gonna tell you exactly how old I am, but for decades, I just didn't speak it. Easing emotional pain allows you to go through your next stage successfully or with with a greater opportunity of success. So that would be my intervention. After you have 4 sessions of this workshop, you would then allow or give your consent for the papers to be surveyed and gone through by a professional. Some of this stuff that has impacted our health. There's studies that show that people who have suffered sexual trauma are at the highest risk for those that will have greater health issues, because holding that level of secrecy away from people and living with that type of shame and living with that type of sense of lack of worth oftentimes is a greater harm than maybe say a divorce or maybe the death of a loved one. When it's something that has so much trauma in it, people who have been sexually abused for years and never said a word, and they're just holding that, and that pain presents itself in the body. The body keeps record of what's happened, and your emotions can really, emotions that are not processed and that are damaging to your psyche and to your personality and to your success can also have a cringing effect on your health. So that would be my intervention. For young kids, I would have them do drawing. I would have them express via wordplay. I would have them be able to really focus on how it feels to write about your feelings. And there's steps that you go through in this expressive writing for emotional ease. There's steps that you would go through to help students and help individuals and families perhaps come together and understand what's happening, what are the secrets that we're holding, and how they're impacting us. And that is the end of my report. There's some other theories that I would like to share with you. But my time is run out. It's a perfect ending. Thank you.